Hello, my name is Justin Bright. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 and my next small step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And we have a lot of missions that we have underway. We are just on the verge of being able to really start a new era of our space program centered around Gemini, deep space exploration, all those cool things, but we've got a little bit more to get through, so let's get right to it. Oops, but don't forget that we now have a whole bunch of KCT upgrades ready to roll, and I don't see any reason not to just keep cranking away at increasing my science production. So that brings us up to 0.658 science per day. I would like to remind you that once upon a time it took us several months to get one science nodes unlocked. So we've come a long way, but we've got a long way yet to go. Temperature scan from the moon complete. We have another 100 science. All right, here we are revisiting the Pioneer Venus, which is on its way towards, well, Venus. And there you can see it. Look at that. Look at that. It's a little silly that I have to hover over it and get a little text box, but that's Venus right there. We are on our way. We are rotated 50 degrees, or almost 90 degrees from the sun because of our transit around it, but that's not a problem because Kerbalism is very generous and gracious that way. So even though we have no solar panel exposure, that's not going to be a problem. All right, so since we're on our way, now it's time for us to figure out what our encounter looks like, and it still looks fabulous. 162 kilometers. And yes, we are going to indeed have some trouble landing with our with orientation towards Earth. So that's going to be a little bit dicey. So let's see what we can do. I have about 3,517 meters per second of delta V. And so my goal here is I want to get an orbit that has one end that is low as this. But I want it to be over here, is really what it is. So it may be as simple as adjusting my trajectory now-ish. Let's see what I can do with that. All right, so as it turns out, if I push our trajectory a little bit radial and a little bit retrograde, according to our orbit around the sun, we are able to pretty well dramatically shift our arrival trajectory around Venus, which is very, very good because you can see that Earth is that way. So that means that when we get here, Earth is going to be this way-ish. That way-ish? Anyways, we're going to want to be on this side of Venus, and if ideally I could be right around here, or at least somewhere where there's sun would be fantastic. But in any case, it looks like I'm doing even better than I thought I was, because we were able to get down into a really nice tight orbit with all of our delta V. But we're going to want to save some, and that's still not that bad. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to be able to make this happen one way or the other. So yeah, but let's first start by adjusting this so that it changes our inclination so that we are more likely to be able to find a place that we can land that will be both in sun and also with, some connection. Because we could also, wait a little while for this. Once we are in orbit, we should be able to stay in orbit for a while. I have plenty of electric charge, and I can make this final burn into what do you call it? I can make the final burn to land this spacecraft kind of whenever. There's no huge rush to make that mission happen as soon as possible. That's one of the reasons why I designed this the way that I did. But we need to get into a good orbit around Venus that is going to give us as many landing opportunities as we can possibly muster. And so we need to do something like this. I think is going to be the safest bet, because this is going to allow us to kind of come across the Terminator in a way that allows us to get I think the best opportunities. No, I like my original plan. So we're going to go ahead and just make this burn. And I don't even need to make it now. I can just I don't even need to do it with the node planner. I just need to kill my rotation and fire this off, and then we will burn until I'm happy with where the orbit is. we are coming around, making large changes here. And there we go. That is basically what we're looking for. So let's just go ahead and I'm just using the RCS to reduce our parasite back down to a nice tight 175 is what I'm looking for. Okay, there we go. So now let's go ahead and point down towards the sun once again. As you see our orbit thrown completely out of whack. Hopefully that comes back when I brake again. Nope, it's somehow making it worse in both directions. That's great. Okay, there we go. That is our encounter. We will be there in just 10 days. All right, we are now in the sphere of influence of Venus. Fantastic. So the science begins. Not that there's any science to do up here except for orbital perturbation, but that's, you know, it's fine. I'm not that worried about it. We have bigger fish to fry when we get a little bit closer. So let's actually make the plan for that. So things have not changed all that much from where we were before. So we can now go ahead and, but at my perigee, I'm going to open up the maneuver node editor so that I can do this a little bit better. We are going to snap it to the perigee, or the parasite, pardon me, minus, I don't know, let's say 3200. Update. Yeah, look at that. Look at how good that is. That's fantastic. That gets us a parasite of 175-ish kilometers, and then an apophyte of 1.6 million meters, which is fine. I think we should be able to lower from that fairly easily. Let's just see. So up here at our apophyte, if I then lower by just a little, just like 20 meters per second is all we need to drop into the atmosphere from our new apophyte. To bring down from 1.7 a little bit further is going to be, I think, too much. Yeah, that's too much. So we're not going to be able to do it from there. But we can do it from, you know, other points in this orbit as well, and then like drop it down a little bit so that we drop into the atmosphere. The trick is that we're going to want to do it on we're going to want to set it up so that we make this happen on this side, so that we are still able to communicate with Earth. So like right here is what is looking promising to me now, but we may need to just wait until we rotate around the sun a little bit more. In any case, we are coming down. We have tons of power now, you can see. Look at our electric charge. We are not gaining much at all because we are rotating. Even with our avionics on, we have a day or so of power, so that's pretty good. But if we turn it off, then we have way more than perpetual because we're getting 0.17 per second net, and our solar panels are drawing 0.61 per second, which is pretty good, pretty darn good. Our solar panels are 32% worn, so that is pretty darn good for this mission. So we are just going to come in while we have pointing ourselves at power for a little bit longer as we finally make our big approach to Venus. And like I've mentioned before, this is pretty similar to the Venus multiprobe mission that NASA sent out, which I think I confused a bunch of times with the Venus Pioneer Orbiter, because they were not the same mission. Like, those were two different missions. But the multiprobe is pretty similar to what we're doing here, and it's also similar to the later Russian Venera missions. So that's kind of what we're duplicating here in trying to get into orbit around Venus and then drop this probe into the atmosphere to scope it out. And like I've said before, I could have designed this mission probably a whole bunch better. Like, I totally understand and recognize that. However, I don't understand anything about Venus's atmosphere either. So that is actually one of the big reasons why I wanted to do things this way. All right, I am setting us up to whip around and execute this node to enter into the orbit of Venus using our heavy generic thrusters that are throwing Aerozine and NTO out the back. So we should have plenty of power to make this happen. And what I've done is I've basically just planned a regular circularization around Venus, but I have given ourselves about 300 meters per second of leeway, which is going to be the extra delta V that I'm going to use to get down, dip the orbit, and then bring it back out. I think I forgot to. I'm pretty sure I forgot to reduce the. What do you call it? The thrust, the force on the decoupler for this probe up here. I'm not sure if I remembered to fix that, so I feel like I'm going to need to account for that in my calculations as like some of the delta V that we're going to be using to deorbit this this atmospheric probe. So I could just count that as extra free delta V, I suppose. And also the removal of the 200 or 300 kilograms of mass up here is going to increase the delta V that this stage is going to get. So I could also count that. So that gives me a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of leeway to play with when we are once we are in this orbit. So there you can see on our lonely burn, far away from home, you can just see the dark surface of Venus, but you can also see the twin pinpricks of light in the far distance. We have Earth and the Moon. Off there, we can see with distant object enhancement, which is just a fantastic mod, and you can really see in this darkness, you can see the Milky Way skybox that I've got installed. Saturn making a little cameo appearance above Moon and the Earth. And there's no drama about whether or not this engine is going to ignite, which honestly I'm fine with. Test flight botching missions like this really hurts my feelings. I'm going to botch the mission. Like, if anybody's going to botch it, it's going to be me. We have captured into an orbit. We are in a highly elliptical orbit now around Venus, and we are continuing our burn to get into a nice low orbit above Venus's surface so that we can conduct our scientific missions from there. Interesting thing about the Venus multi-probe was that they actually separated the probes like way the heck out away from Venus before the multi-probe bus actually arrived, like days before they actually arrived, which is fascinating. I'm not sure I knew that. But they did that so that they could make just the teensiest of adjustments to those probes' trajectories, and then they would enter into wildly different places on Venus, so they could cast as wide a net as possible to, oh my god, look at that. Look at that blue sunrise. How cool. Oh, sorry, I got so distracted because like I saw the blue glow on my metallic spacecraft, and then the sun started rising there. Oh, that was neat. Anyways, they basically shot buckshot of the multi-probe at the planet Venus to get the broadest net possible for getting their science, so they would get different places. But they were able to do that by detaching 4 days away, but then they would, they came in on their own with no heat shields, but they have little protective covers, it looks like, for the individual probes. So I don't know what that design might have looked like for me compared to this, but I have gone as conservative as possible and gotten a giant 1 meter heat shield. There's so many things that I could have done that would have reduced the size of this mission and probably made this work a little bit better, but I'm really happy with what we've come up with. Like, I'm feeling pretty good, because it may not be like the most absolute perfect and optimal thing, but this is what we came up with. This is what we did. We worked really hard, and this is what we have, and we are now whipping around wasting fuel in orbit of Venus, which is, what I definitely wanted to be doing. Stop. Please stop. Maneuver is locked because of course it is, because we are far away from a place where we can actually get signal. But there we go. We've done it. We have a nice low, what do you call it? A nice low orbit over Venus. I don't think this is like space low around Venus? I'm not sure. But hey, Venus Orbital Science Probe, congratulations, that is 1 contract complete. We got 2 more to go. All right, so here is what I am thinking about. If we can get our parasite no lower than 110 kilometers, which is what we're heading for, we should be able to drag through the top part of the atmosphere for just long enough to come around to a point where our orbiter has signal before we land. This is care of the trajectories mod, which is telling us this. So the basic idea is if I just touch the very top of the atmosphere, we should be able to hang out long enough to make this work. Alternatively, I wait a month or so and see if the solar angle is a little more favorable compared to our orbit. But I think this might work. Maybe. You can't. The trick is you can't bank science. Like, so if I have a signal between the lander and the orbiter, we should be able to, and also a connection to Earth, we should be able to transmit back. There's that relay. But I can't send the science from the lander to the orbiter and then send it back later on. Like, that's just not a thing that they model in real antennas, which, I mean, that sounds like a lot, so I really don't blame them. But, so this is, yeah, like, hoping that trajectories is correct about how long it would take to re-enter, compared to my nervousness about getting this correct. So yeah, I'm not sure I want to trust that, mostly because like 1 meter per second too little deceleration, and I don't capture and do like it'll be on a subsequent pass, and then we will be way out of alignment with our orbiter. 1 too much, and I land almost immediately over here where I will never have signal, or at least not for a very, very long time. So yeah, that's pretty darn dicey. Yeah, because it's either that or I make the burn over on this side and then we land up here where I know I'll have signal, but I also know we won't be able to see. All right, so I think that means that we are going to wait a month or two and just see if we can't get more favorable conditions around the sun. See if our orbit shifts enough and everything rotates around in a way that is better for this, because we don't actually need to, like, the only thing that's pushing me to do this right now is because I wanted to get it done right now because we're so close, we're here. But there's no reason to be hasty and have a substandard mission just because I want to have it be finished. So we are going to point ourselves at the sun once again, kill our rotation. We have plenty of power. Shutting down our avionics to make sure we have perpetual power because we still have the ability to do this for quite a while. And we're just going to do science around Venus for a little while until the orbital conditions are a little more favorable. So I'm going to set myself a timer. Let's see, in 30 days, and see what the orbital environment looks like between now and then. Check landing conditions. Add alarm, 30 days. So we'll have one thing in between now and then. But for now, we're going to call this good. We have gotten into a good orbit around Venus. We have just enough delta V left to decelerate our lander and set it down, hopefully gently, upon Venus's surface. But we will get back to that when we can do this and actually be able to see. An update has taken place once again, right in the middle of an episode, probably. But yeah, I've decided that I needed to get some updates. It's been about time. It's actually been a while. Like, I played a whole bunch right in a row like a week or two ago, and I had so much footage that just carried me for a really long time. But now it's time to start recording once again, and I have been informed that there are so many updates that I have missed. So I am hopefully all caught up on that. And one of the things that we can do now, unlock my input locks because that was all messed up for a second there. One of the things we are ready to do now is start planning once again for our manned spaceflight program. So we've kind of taken a pause on that as I've been waiting for, and oh, look at this, there's a new like RP-1 icon. It's no longer just a generic wrench. I've been training my astronauts on the Gemini cabin, but I've discovered that you get access to proficiency training of a new capsule or cabin or whatever while it is in research, like during the research phase. That's what these yellow ones are. These are all the things that I'm researching but have not unlocked yet. But once you've unlocked it in the tech node, if you have unlocked it but you haven't like bought the node, like actually paid the unlock cost, then you don't get to do proficiency training. And that is just a known, it's not even an issue, that's just how that works. So this awkward time in between having researched it and having paid for it is just a little bit of a lost time. And yeah, be more proactive with your training is the answer to that. That said, it's finally time to actually do the unlocks of the Gemini. Fantastic, because we are finally going to be flying the darn thing, and I'm just beside myself excited about it. We've got the brand new parts that just got wrapped up. They've kind of been in progress for a little while, and I'm kind of like getting a sneak peek here. I think they might be out and available for everybody at this point. They're like, when I was initially testing these, I had to like grab them from a pull request, like let alone from the RO Capsules master. But now they are in the master, and it's like getting to be more widely disseminated. So it is time for us to actually jump on the Gemini program. So this is going to cost us a bunch of money, but it's not going to cost us 5 million funds. There's a whole bunch of shared input costs that we'll be taking advantage of here. So we're going to start with the Gemini command pod. This is the brand new BDB Blue Dog part model. So we're going to buy that for 375,000. There we go. And that gives us the 3 capsules. And then if we refresh our view on this research, we'll see that that also gives us advanced command pod. It gives us the nose fairing. And some of these are the old models too. The aerodynamic nose fairing. Parachutes. More parachutes. Gives us the heat shield. Gives us this nose cone fairing. And a bunch of other parts. After retrograde section. Care about the Boscott airlock. Okay, so that's what we get for our initial investment of 375,000 funds. Now we have to buy some of the rest of it. Technically, some of this, like the Gemini adapter section, the Gemini equipment module, like technically those aren't really necessary. I've got the retrograde, which is good, but this is the adapter retrograde. What is this? It's from the FASA Okay, we are going to grab the equipment section, which is kind of just like a service module tank kind of thing. Come on, let me do the thing. So we're going to spend 80,000 on that, and I'm going to hope that that gets me a bunch of other stuff for free. Yep, gets us this adapter retrograde section. All right, then we get the RCS thruster pack, re-entry control system, attitude maneuvering system, which gets us the RCS version and the control node on top for free. And the last thing we have to buy is the Star 13 Gemini retro rocket. So that costs us all told a little bit more than like 500,000, like 550 looks like, which is not great, but that's, you know, to be expected for the research unlocks for a brand new crewed capsule. All right, so with that done, you can see now that our proficiency training is back and available, and we can send Vicky Chambers, our new scientist that we just hired, into training for more than a year, which, you know, pretty unfortunate, but is what it is. That's just how long it's going to be before we have a second crew. Yep, so Johnny Flores is training as well, and he's going to be finished in another 48 days, which is good because that'll be actually in time for the next rocket to be built. Valerie Dunn is trained, and Lisa Kim are trained. So we have pilots and scientists for now. I don't know if there's anything that like would really require an engineer at this stage, but I figured pilot and scientist were the right first two choices for these missions, because the scientists will theoretically be able to get us more science or repack science. I'm not actually 100% sure what the functionality is. Let's see. Reset experiments, run experiments from EVA, can boost the value of data from science experiments. Sure. Science generation rate is 25%. Sure, okay, whatever. That's all very mysterious, and I don't know exactly what any of that means. In terms of what it's actually going to do for us with, you know, Kerbalism and everything else. But, you know, I'm sure, like, thematically it feels right that we're going to have pilots and scientists to start with. Yeah, so training is underway, but we have a crew that is already ready and trained and prepared for everything except for the actual mission. So we could train on that, and that's going to take 62 days, so we don't really need to get started on that until we have a rocket in progress. So we have a little bit of time before they're going to pull the trigger on that, because we are now rolling out some extra stuff. We have a Corona launch that is coming up soon. I have a brand new science satellite and a ScanSat that we're going to be doing. But now let's go take a look at building our Titan II. All right, so everything has kind of been put away a little bit by the part janitor and RO capsules and everything else. They hide the stuff that's not, you know, the good ones. So we only have the good stuff here, which, by the way, I'm not sure if I ever showed you guys, but they redid the Mercury capsule too with the new BDB parts, and look at how gorgeous it is. I almost want to run another mission with this just because it's so fantastic. Like, look at this. This is using the Blue Dog Bureau BDB or whatever it is parts, and they look fantastic. And now they're all tooled and working for RP-1, and they're all much more fiddly and very like they've got little bits and stuff and things that you can play with. Like, this is a little flap that opens up, like this little destabilizing flap that you can deploy, and then that helps you to not point directly into the airstream and all that. Yeah, so it looks fantastic, and I really like it, and these little retro motors are great and everything else. Maybe I did show you guys this, I don't know. But you know, it's worth looking at again, because these are definitely out now with the latest master of RO capsules, so go grab that if you haven't yet, because it's gorgeous. But we are starting from scratch with a brand new pod. We are going to be building our Gemini. All right, so when building these, I'm going to be perfectly honest that I have to like use the filter extensions to bring us down to just the RO capsules parts, because there's so many fiddly little bits on here. And I'm pretty sure I have a Gemini capsule like pre-built out here with a couple different loadouts. But yeah, just to kind of show you how this thing comes together. So you start with, you start with your Gemini. There you go. And slap on your re-entry control system on top of there. Make sure you actually grab the right one. Yeah, this is the one that actually fits this model, I think. It's right to me. We're going to want to slap the heat shield right on the bottom there. I'm pretty sure that goes on next as well. On top here, we have our parachute system. That goes underneath either the aerodynamic fairing. Oh, and I actually missed the nose docking mechanism. Not actually seeing under RO capsules, maybe because I just didn't have it unlocked. So that's another 50,000, which we could actually, I'm going to save for now because we're not ready to send up our docking mission yet. So we're going to save that and just use the aerodynamic nose fairing, which we have underneath that the main parachute, and then this acts as the fairing on top of that, and the drogue chute actually slots inside here in that, which is kind of a fascinating place for that, but there you go. And then this is aerodynamic enough, and we don't actually need the little cover that goes on top, but we could slap that on there. Yeah, because the docking mechanism is a little jankier, so it's like it actually has little things that stick up and all that. So I think we can launch this just like that, and that's just fine. So anyways, that's upward and forward on the Gemini capsule. So moving on down from there, we have the heat shield, and the little bearing, or the decoupler goes on here, and then we have... not the equipment section yet. We have a retrograde section, which you see kind of like slots right into the decoupler, which is the neat thing about this. Like, this is something that I complained about early on. The fact that it snaps together in one particular way, and if you don't play with it in that particular way, it doesn't quite work or look right. So there are certain things about this that I love. Like, I love being able to do the historically accurate looking Gemini, but I hate having to use the historically accurate Gemini. You know what I mean? I think we're going to be able to get around this, and this hasn't bothered me nearly as much as it has in the past. But at least with these this capsule, I think this is a fine thing, and I like having the guidance on that, at least for now. We're going to roll our own service module kits a little bit later on, especially when we get translunar, but for now, this will work just fine. We will let history guide us. So inside the retrograde section, we're going to be putting 4 of these Star 13E Gemini retro rockets. There they go, just like that. Then on top of that comes the equipment section, which comes with a bunch of liquid oxygen, which I think is converted in some process or another. I couldn't tell you which one off the top of my head, but yeah, it comes packed with some extra stuff. And inside there, you're actually able to pick which set of nodes you want. Like, you can say I want 4 nodes so that I can put in 4 of these very, very weak and underpowered thrusters, which maybe that one. Yeah, there's a little bit of a texture issue where like the nozzles are see-through, but they're black when they're in flight, so it's not that big of a deal. So with 4 of these, we have 738 seconds of thrust and 373 meters per second of delta V on that, so that's pretty good. So that's enough to do like a small amount of maneuvering in orbit. Like, this is actually not much. Like, this is not any more than our what do you call it, the Mercury extended that I did. So there's not a whole lot more than that packed on here. But yeah, this is basically it. From here, we could put on additional stuff packed on here. We would pick science experiments and everything else, but I'm going to show you the one that I have baked at home. And here we have it. This is my first Gemini A on a good old Titan II booster, as best as I could roll it with the RO tank parts. Some things are going to look a little different, and that's just something we're going to have to deal with together. But yeah, so that should do it. Like, that's it. Like, this is the Gemini capsule ready to freaking roll. It comes in at 145 tons, so I don't have to stress about rolling it out on a giant pad, at least until I start worrying about translunar Gemini, because we are absolutely doing that when it comes time for that. Here's the unfortunate fact, is that even tooled, which this is going to cost me 27,000, which is fine. That's only going to bring us down to 19,000 funds, which is as expensive as our massive Saturn I Pioneer Venus mission. A little bit more than that even, so woof. Manned missions are expensive, and that's just kind of how it works. So the other thing to look at before we get going is we're going to configure crew science. We've got a couple things set up here. We got 3 of them. We've got simple organism egg growth for our first mission, which takes 3 hours. Orbital maneuvering takes 3 hours. I don't feel like I picked this one, but now look at this. We got all kinds of stuff. Have we done this one? Nope, haven't done this one. All right, we are going to evaluate food is what's going to happen. And that's going to take 1 hour. That's pretty neat, actually. Yeah, so we got a couple science experiments to do. Let's see, what else can we do? We got egg growth, flight sleep analysis. Takes 6 days. Work tolerance, sympathetic. Man, there's so many experiments to do. I'm so excited. Okay, we're going to do in-flight work tolerance, food evaluation, and orbital maneuvering, because that sounds very early Gemini, because we are assessing the ability of astronauts to do physical work in spaceflight conditions. We are testing tang and food in tubes, and we are doing some orbital maneuvering testing early on. So we actually have a lot of science experiments to do on our early Gemini missions and on our bunch of our Gemini missions, which is pretty darn exciting. One thing to keep in mind is that with the initial configuration, we have, and let's not simulate this or just turn off the resource pump. There we go. So with the resource pump off, we only have 9 hours of electric charge on the Gemini spacecraft. So when we decouple everything, let's top it off. Yeah, even with just the capsule, we are going to only have about 11 hours of electric charge to start with, which means that we are not going to be able to spend all that long on orbit before we have to return. Something that we're working on is fuel cells, which is going to be a really helpful thing that is going to make it possible for us to... That's what the Gemini used. They didn't have solar panels on them, they used fuel cells. So they packed on fuel that they could burn in the fuel cells, and that is how they got their power for their long missions. So that is what we are going to plan to do with the Gemini A, which is now, I think, all ready to roll. So we've got this loaded up. We are ready to go. We have astronauts that are prepared to head out on this flight. They just need to train for the mission. And this will be a relatively short mission, just a couple hours until we finish those early science experiments. But that, I think, is that. So, Gemini mission, manned space flight, we are ready to go. Let's add this to the build list. All right, might as well get another Corona set up there to collect more science. 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of another Thor Agena, bringing up my Corona 4 satellite into low Earth orbit. Yeah, so now I'm at the really fun stage of I've reinstalled a whole bunch of stuff. Can I hold on? Do not. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah, so I'm in the brand new stage of, or the stage of having a brand new install, because I did a whole bunch of updating, which you'll notice that the coast looks better. That appears to all be fixed. The shaders look better. Everything looks fantastic. But all of my windows are all messed up. Like all my MechJeb windows that I had set up have all been reset because I turned them off. So that's kind of how that works. Oh, and I don't even have that better time warp set up the way that it was either. So that's fine. It's all fine. This is the perils of trying to live on the edge of updates, where you have to keep if you have to keep reinstalling things, that means you have to reinstall them all of them, everything. Which like I said, it's fine. I've asked for this. This is the only person I can blame is myself. But anyways, everything is looking pretty darn good for our flight. We have our standard Thor Agena rocket. We got the H1, we got the verniers, we've got an Agena upper stage here. So we'll just see in orbit. No, I'm lying. Let's not. I just want you to see how awesome everything looks right now. Let me fly the clouds and make sure everything looks right. I turn the clouds black. I'm not sure if that's an improvement or not. But yeah, just look at how gorgeous everything is. It's so good. I love the visual mods and the 16K textures and everything else. Just looks so fabulous. And notice the coasts are no longer having a seizure. It's pretty great. They've managed to fix pretty much all the issues that I had noticed, and they're just constantly out there working so hard, making so many awesome improvements. All right, we have stage SEP, and we have an ignition failure. That's less than great. Let's try that one more time, please. Activated the engine. It's unreachable. Target shouldn't be unreachable. Last failure, target is unreachable. Now it seems to be burning, and we seem to be doing okay. Thankfully, this Agena has two ignitions on it, and we only need to use the one. So we're not going to be able to deorbit the booster, but that is fine if the alternative was failing the mission entirely. Did I not set up my... Shoot, I must not have set my atmosphere, the out-of-atmosphere noise muffler thing correctly, because I thought that I had that right, but I guess not. So we are going to have to... You're just going to have to enjoy the sound of my voice as we get ourselves up into orbit. Yeah, so this should be basically the same thing as the last Corona satellite that I put up into orbit. The only real difference is that it should now have finally enough controllable mass on the avionics that I'm not going to have to guess when to, or I'm not going to have to fly around the world to like happen to accidentally be pointing retrograde so that I can deorbit. Theoretically, I mean, it's possible that I screwed that up too. These things are always possible, but... So we are heading up. We have a little ways to go yet, so I can time warp a bit. Hopefully this still all works. It seems that the autopilot has figured out where we were and is able to just pick up right where we left off. We weren't off too far, so that was not that much of an issue. Pitching down to finish up our burn into orbit. But yeah, I'm just here trying to scrounge up a little additional science. I probably should have stopped and added the new science onto this craft, but that's something that I have coming up soonish. Like, I have a new satellite that is going to be coming up, the biome sat. It's going to do scansat duty, and it's also going to have all of the new science that I've unlocked. So that will be very, very cool. And that will get me just a tremendous amount of science around Earth, and then we will move on to do the stuff in... Uh-oh. Oh, come on. Give me a break with this. Okay, I'm back, and away from the spacebar this time, for goodness sake. Yeah, it's I just really didn't want to re-record that entire launch. I was trying to hit the free camera so that I would have a much nicer view of Earth while we're flying overhead, but instead I hit the spacebar, and so then I had to redo the mission, and I guess I didn't have the failure on the engine, so whatever. I'm just not that stressed about it. Anyways, this is our standard Corona satellite that I've just sent up to vacuum up some additional science. We're going to need to do a couple more of these, so I'll probably update this with new, with new stuff, new science experiments for the future, but we're going to have to like adjust the solar panels and everything else. And speaking of solar panels, it is time... Maneuver planner, smartass is what we're looking for. I would like to point, let's say, sun is down. Okay, fantastic perpetual sunlight. Let's go ahead, and we are already running the experiment. So that's going to take, I don't know, 140-ish days, but well, I guess I'll set a timer just so I don't forget. 145 days is when we should start to check and see how that science is coming along. Now that we are pointing at the sun and everything is nice and stable, now I can kick off this actual payload as we begin doing our experiments around the orbit of Earth. So yeah, there we go. That is another Corona satellite nicely up in orbit, and we got to see all the cool new stuff that is happening on the, that the RP-1 folks and everybody else involved in that modding community has built for us, at making the world so darn pretty to fly around. And with that flying off and deorbiting, science is happening. I am going to make sure we do our automation. We want to turn everything off, all back on when power is high, because we want to make sure that we're not screwing anything up. So yeah, there we go. That should do it just fine. Orbital perturbation and planetary photography experiments are all running Fantastic, and that is a successful mission so far. All right, so one thing we have unlocked is improved power generation and storage, which I am all the way stoked about. So this is going to get us a couple of really important things. So let's just kind of go through them real quick. So we have an external fuel cell, which the Gemini I have discovered had was missing a little something in the configuration file, which meant that it didn't have the fuel cell built in to the equipment module like it was supposed to. So I fixed that, and but this is where you can get an external fuel cell and use it on other things. So we've got this little cylinder that you could attach. We've got this little side-mounted one and then a bigger side-mounted one that each one can give you a different amount of power. So this is 4,500 or 4.5 kilowatts, which I'm not 100% sure exactly what that is in electric charge terms. 1 kilowatt is 1 electric charge per second. Yeah, because I think that 1 watt... Yeah, so the formula is 1 electric charge is 1 kilojoule, and so 1 electric charge per second is 1 kilowatt. So... right, that gives us a absolutely massive 4.5 kilowatts of fuel per week, so 4.5 electric charge per second, which is fabulous. Consumes 245 liters of liquid hydrogen, 175 liters of LOX, which is kind of a lot, but that's also a tremendous amount of power and might be something that I could use for my ScanSat satellites now that I'm thinking about it. Because those have just a tremendous power draw, and I just do not have the solar panels to deal with it yet. So we also have some folding solar panels. So these are different than the hinged ones in that I think these actually rotate. I haven't actually tested one in orbit yet, but I think that these are the ones that actually rotate. And these are the procedural versions that you can use. But then there's some static ones, and there's an interesting thing with these static ones. We have an extendable level 1 solar panel, which is a 1 meter square. It's basically the stock model, but I'm pretty sure that this is the kind that like extends and then rotates around to track the sun. Very cool. But it's stock level 1, so fine. But we also have 2 static solar panels that are static level 2, which is the next level beyond what I already have unlocked and is not something that I have available on procedurals. You don't get that until here, tech level 2. But there's some static ones that we can use right now if I were to unlock these, and that would actually be probably really helpful because with higher level technology in these solar panels, you get better energy density and you get better mass to power ratio. So they'll weigh less for the same amount of power. And you'll also get, they wear out more slowly, which is fantastic. So lots of really good benefits to these, but unfortunately we are kind of broke right now, but let's go see what we can do to fix that. All right, we're back now with a beautiful shot of Pioneer Venus, which let's take a look at the orbital characteristics now compared to where it was before. And there we go. It looks like the sun has slipped a good, I don't know, 20 degrees, 30 degrees around the planet. And I think now we are getting much closer to being able to drop down to the surface and then have both communications and sunlight. This is still pretty high up, so I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that here. I may need to wait even longer, which would be unfortunate, but it would also be kind of fine. Because I don't have signal here, but I might have signal like here. Let's actually see what that looks like, or at what point do I get signal, because we're talking directly through the planet at this point. And there it is. Okay, so we need to be all the way down here to have signal. So that might not be a bad place to target our landing, is here on the south pole, near the south pole of Venus. Because the alternative is up here where we have less time that is convenient. So yeah, this seems like it's the right place. So let me fiddle around with this and see what we can do. Okay, after fussing around with this for a bit, I think that our earliest time to descent is going to be around here-ish. It's still very hard to tell exactly where in the orbit that would be because, like, I don't have a parascythe node to tell me, but because the idea is that we would bring our parascythe down fairly low and then hope to enter into the atmosphere at a point up here where we can actually get our get good signal and also good sun so that we could see the landing. Unfortunately, that means it's going to be a little bit longer yet. We spent about a month waiting for this to shift around, and it looks like we are going to have to wait even longer, probably 2-3 more months, which I hate doing. Like, I really don't want to wait that long, and I should probably check and see how long I have in those contracts, although I imagine it's probably years still. So yeah, it's an impatience thing. It's also like I want to get that money so I can move on and do other really cool stuff. But I really want to make sure that I'm doing this, as right as possible. Because I'm confident that we can, if I'm able to get us down into a parascythe of 110 kilometers and then re-enter from there, I'm confident that we'll be able to make that work. I'm fairly certain that the design that we have put together should work for that. If I do something more extreme just to make it happen sooner, I'm worried that we're going to fail at the mission and I'm going to be upset with myself. So yeah, we're going to leave this for a little bit longer and we will see how things shift. All right, well, disappointing that we couldn't finish up the Pioneer Venus mission quite yet, but better safe than sorry. I really don't want to fail out that mission, and it would take a lot longer to build and launch another one than it would be for me just to be patient for another couple of months. So now we have the Intrepid 8 on the way to Mercury. All right, so speaking of things that I've messed up terribly, I did not plan my antenna properly. I thought that I had used the antenna planning GUI to make sure that I had a good transmit between here and Earth at the time that we were going to be arriving. Because what you can do is you can kind of see both, when you're using the antenna planning GUI in the vehicle assembly building, you can see both the minimum and maximum distance and the transmit rates that you'll get at each one, which will help you to plan for exactly this eventuality. So I thought that I had done that, and so maybe I'm not understanding how the antenna planner works, because we do not have signal at all. I do not have transmit at this range, not one bit. I could have cranked up the power more and that would have saved us, but I must have planned badly, because at 150 gigameters we still have 322 bits per second in the transmit, which is what we need to actually get this connection and to actually get science back. But at 160 we have none, and we are at 164.7 right now. So that means we have no signal whatsoever, and we are not going to be able to transmit science, and I'm not actually sure that we're even going to get the contract. We should get this Mercury flyby, and then we will not be able to transmit science back until we get within 150 gigameters of Earth. Yeah, which is not going to happen on this orbit. So we're going to probably be up to 103, up here 103 days, and then we'll probably come back down, and on this pass back down in 212 days, Earth will have shifted along its orbit in this direction, and we should, in theory, then be able to transmit back that science. Hopefully, because when you are doing it on the same vessel, it does store the data with Kerbalism. It does store the data internally to the vessel, and it will allow you to transmit at a later time. It's just as if you had gone into the automation and turned off data upload for that period. So yeah, that's really disappointing, and that's once again entirely my fault. Like, I had thought for sure that I had planned for this, but I guess not. All right, so what I'm doing now is I am just shifting our skill rotation. Oh, do I not have? I didn't turn on my avionics. I should probably do that. Full minus. Yep. So what I'm doing now is I'm just pushing my I'm pushing our orbit through the planet Mercury so that we can get our flyby on the sunny side, which will be helpful in actually being able to see the darn thing, because if we're not getting any science and we're not going to finish the contract, then that's the only thing that I have left to me. Sigh. But that's fine. We are going to get a nice close flyby, 85 kilometers above the surface of Mercury. Ah, there it is. It's very subtle, but can you see that? Can you see that little... It's not the bright dot that distant object enhancement turns very distant planets into that you can't actually see, but this tiny little speck right here is where Mercury is. So that is where we are headed on our flyby, and I had to actually point my spacecraft directly at it so that I could see the darn thing. All right, so normally at this point I would tell you what this mission most resembles in terms of real missions that have happened, but I can only really tell you what this mission is not, and what this mission is not is Mariner 10, and that is something that's really cool that I'm reading about, that is going to be something that we do in the future, but is not what this mission can be, likened to in any real way. So Mariner 10 was a really cool mission that was designed for a lot more longevity than my little junky Intrepid has been, because it was sent out on a trajectory that was going to intercept Mercury. First of all, it flew with a flyby of Venus. This was in 1973, and so I'm going to actually be keeping that in mind, because that tells me that there is in fact a flyby opportunity in 1973 to go from Earth past Venus down to Mercury. And what they did is they got themselves into a resonant orbit with Mercury. For every orbit that the Mariner 10 made, Mercury made 2, and so they would be able to meet when those orbits matched up. So that's incredibly cool, and I'm not sure I'm going to be able to duplicate that exactly, but something like that sounds pretty darn neat, so that we can really get a lot of good exploration of Mercury in. So we are heading in a little bit closer. Oh, I see. I'm locked in on this sphere of influence change. My alarm clock, everything else okay? We good? We good? All right. Yeah, I was trying to have it my UI closed, but there was something blocking me. Yeah, so we are coming in, and I mean, all I can do is hope at this point that that the instruments are still able to get science, and that once we get, oh yeah, we can actually see it happening here. Mass spectrometry is running. Yeah, we are getting good data from all the different experiments, and hopefully we will be able to send that back to Earth as soon as we possibly can. All right, so there it is. We are coming in close. Stopping to take my screenshots and looking at that, because like I said, this is basically all we have going for us now, because I'm not going to be able to finish the contract or anything. But yeah, so we've got, let's see, what can I talk about here? Because of that, well, I'm not sure this is a failure yet. So this is a failure in planning, but we have improved communications unlocking in 8 days. So I think what my next step is going to be is we have new solar power generation, we have new communications. Those are the big things that we need to make sure that these missions aren't so crummy in the future. So what we're going to do is I can use this time to accept some new contracts, and then we're going to go ahead and plan new missions. So we've got new lunar missions, we've got missions to other planets, we have all sorts of cool things that we can do now that we have power and we have communications that are going to be a little bit better. So yeah, I'm hopeful that, ooh, here we go, we are flipping, that's flipping around, and there we go, we're flying right past. I mean, hopefully we're flying past. Oh my god. Yep, we are flying right past, and this is a lot bigger than the moon, so it feels like we are really coming down. Well, not that much bigger than the moon, but it's a fair sized planet. Oh, actually, I'm wrong. It's only about 700 more kilometers in radius than the moon is. So it's not that much bigger than the moon, but it is larger. So it has a 0.4 Gs almost, but we are whipping past one way or the other, and it shares a lot of features with the moon, like the way that looks, the cratered surface, the lack of atmosphere, all those things. So yeah, that's super duper cool. But I'm just so bummed that we don't have any connection whatsoever. So it seems to be running science, and we seem to be like holding on to all that data. So I'm really hopeful that we are going to be able to hold this data until we are able to get connection with Earth. The other thing to keep in mind is that the solar panels are going to be a lot more worn out when we do this next part of this flyby, so that is going to be a dicey thing as well. Because I'm imagining that the next conjunction, the next time we're going to be that close to Earth, is going to be down in this area of the orbit anyways. We're going to be close to the sun and have that really high solar panel output. So that is pretty cool, and hopefully that will do it for us. So let's just kind of continue our flyby. There it is. We've sent out just a small probe, 300 or 400 kilograms. Just a little 300 kilogram probe has been thrown out to the innermost planet, the least explored planet in our inner planet in our solar system. And there we go. We are coming away now. That's very cool. I'm not sure I've ever been to, I'm actually quite confident I've never been to Mercury before. So this is a really cool mission, even if I've failed a little bit on the planning of the communications. So that's the thing, like test every eventuality. Like you've got to make sure that you've got all of the power for the transmitters that you possibly need. So we have better, actually shoot, I wonder if I wouldn't be able to communicate with this once I get my ground station going. Like in 8 days, I'll be able to construct my next level. I'll be able to start constructing my next level of the deep space network. So hopefully that will actually allow us to do what we need to do, like actually get that communication. Maybe we'll be able to fix it on the side of Earth as opposed to worrying about this flying back around. So I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, we're not going to be able to upgrade the tech level of this antenna, but we should be able to upgrade on Earth, and hopefully that will help. And if not, then we'll be able to get it on the next pass. All right, but I think that is actually going to do it for us. That's a good enough place to leave it. We've got a lot of upgrades, a lot of things to work on coming up in the future that I'm really excited to start getting cracking on. So we will get to that another time. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Like and subscribe, do all those things, tell your friends, and leave a comment down in the comments below. I do love to hear from you and chat with everybody. So I will see you next time.